Joining us now, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey. Governor, thank you so much for being with us today. In listening to the arguments yesterday, it just seemed that the majority might decide this on the very narrow ground of standing, that the doctors who were the plaintiffs here could not show that they individually were harmed, which would still leave it open, an open question, maybe after the election, next term, for the justices to take another look at the bill with another set of plaintiffs, and it could still be in jeopardy. So what should states, governors like yourself, where this is legal, do to try to protect its availability?
Well, I think they should do what I've already done, which is to stockpile mifepristone. We have a lot of mifepristone available here in the state. We've also helped other providers get their own supply. I signed an executive order making sure that we were protecting patients and providers when it comes to the administering of medication abortion. So I think we need to do everything now and not wait for the court's ruling. I, too, listen to the arguments. I also know, as a former attorney general, not to read too much into lines of questioning. But let's talk, Andrea, about what really is going on in this case. The plaintiffs are doctors. They're doctors who have an extreme anti-abortion agenda. That's what they're trying to push through. And so, you know, it's a dangerous situation when you have the court taking up the question not only about mifepristone, which is probably one of the most studied and safest products out there, proven to be safer than Tylenol, Viagra, and penicillin even. And you have courts and lawyers now arguing about what the FDA does. I mean, the FDA, scientists, right, who are making these decisions, making these calls. And that's why we need to do everything as states to ensure protection for medication abortion, and also make sure that we are being clear with the court, as we were joining other states in an amicus brief in this very matter, to say how harmful it would be if we return to a day when MIFI and medication abortion weren't available.
And your state is one of just a handful with telemedicine abortion shield laws to protect healthcare providers prescribe and send abortion pills to patients in states that have banned abortion. Are you worried that anti-abortion activists are going to target those shield laws next?
Well, they may try to do that, and we are just going to stand firm on this. I mean, this is about women's health and women's health care. And the thing that's so upsetting to me, Andrea, is that what the plaintiffs here are trying to do is going to cause substantial harm to women. We would have a situation where it would be substantially harder for women to access a way to terminate their pregnancy. It's also the case that it would raise health care costs. Imagine, instead of getting a telehealth prescription for something that you can go to your local pharmacy and get, you are required to see a doctor in person, not once, not twice, but 3 times. By the way, those are doctors who could be doing other things like cancer screening and other kinds of health care. So it's just bad all around. I hope the Supreme Court sees its way through to a decisive and favorable ruling that protects access to medication abortion and also protects what the FDA and scientists and experts are supposed to do.
Now, last night, a Democratic candidate, Marilyn Lands, won a special election for a state house seat in Alabama. She made abortion rights and IVF central to her campaign there. Are there some lessons there for Democrats across the country, even in red states, that have banned abortion like Alabama?
Well, and we have a candidate for president in Donald Trump who's talking about a nationwide abortion ban. I think that in election after election, we've seen, Andrea, the voters come out and speak very clearly, decisively, that they support women's access to abortion. So I think it will continue to be a campaign issue. I think it's a winning issue for Democrats because the vast majority of Americans, mind you, Republican and Democrat, believe that women should have access to abortion.
Governor Healey, thank you very much. Pleasure to have you on.
Great to be with you.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon. and enjoy it.